Every year around Halloween, we are treated to an outpouring of what could only be described as scare literature, telling us about how the holiday is satanic and evil and should not be celebrated by Christians. These opinions are backed up by some rather unusual and very frightening fantasies masquerading as historical facts. The following videos are not intended to address whether or not Satan exists, nor to show that witches are nice granola-eating vegetarians and tree huggers who wouldn't harm a fly. Nor is it an attack on fundamentalist Christians, but rather a discussion concerning some of the so-called facts offered in some anti-Halloween publications.
Actually celebrating Halloween gives evil less power, not more. Think about it. If Satan cannot get you to worship him, what would he be willing to settle for? What cripples people? Fear, maybe? If he can convince you to stay inside and lock the doors, guess what you won't be doing? Loving people, serving your neighbors, and living like you believe that.
Because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world.
That celebrating, on the other hand, turns Satan's mission on its head. To conquer evil, do good. To conquer sadness, laugh. To conquer death, live. To conquer Satan, celebrate. Love. Serve. Pray. Give. In doing so, you're proclaiming the victory of Christ. Actually, Halloween is more about the times than anything else. In 2012, the most popular kid costume was Spider-Man, during which at that time the Spider-Man movie came out, and its animated series were very popular among the kids. As for the girls, the most popular costume was of a princess. Nothing evil about it. Alesha Kaufman wrote, Festival of Fears, in Christianity Today, that Halloween in the 19th century were devoid of scary masks and monsters. Mainstream Halloween celebrations in the Victorian era were generally tame and devoid of occult overtones. Instead of pulling pranks or hunting neighborhoods, young people chatted and flirted in festoon parlors. By the beginning of the 20th century, some towns had gone so far as to make Halloween primarily a civic affair, complete with parades and block parties.
Now, this is where the Druids now would have their version of fun. They would take approximately 12 prisoners, 12 people now who were going to be used as human sacrifice offerings, and line them up in a single row in front of that cauldron. They would take an apple, throw it into the cauldron, and say, if you can take that in between your teeth on the first try, you will be set free immediately. Who would do that? Raise your hand. Who would try to grab that apple in between their teeth so that they could be set free? Who would do it? Raise your hand, please. There's only one problem, though. That cauldron has been boiling away for 4 to 5 hours now. The boiling temperature of liquid is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, who would do it? No volunteers? You? You know, you'd be the only one then who would have a chance of living. You see, if you didn't try for it, you were going to end up as a human sacrifice offering anyways. This was your only way out. Every single person there did take the chance, except with dire consequences, let's face it. After they plunged their heads into that boiling liquid, their faces, their neck, and I don't even know how much of their chest and back, literally was just melting to where they would be permanently disfigured and unrecognizable. Many of them went blind because of the 212-degree liquid that was burning their eye sockets away. Many end up as partially or permanently deaf because of the damage that was done to their ear canal. And the damage that was done to their speech and to their respiratory system, because all that liquid was funneling down their throats while they were trying to grab that apple. And yes, this is where you got that cute little game, bobbing for apples. Now, if you did grab that apple on the first try in between your teeth, they held to their promise. They let you go. Some life afterwards. But if you didn't do it, they would throw you on the ground and behead you right there on the spot.
Some say the custom of bobbing for apples dates all the way back to pre-Christian Ireland and the pagan festival of Samhain, though there is little documentary evidence to support this. Apple bobbing has also been popularly associated with Pomona, the ancient Roman goddess of fruits, trees, and gardens, in whose honor a festival was supposedly held each year on November 1st. But that, too, stands on shaky historical ground, as some question whether such a festival ever actually existed. History does not record the origin of apple bobbing, so any story you hear about its supposed origins in ancient pagan festivals is total fiction. We can say with more certainty that the game of apple bobbing goes back at least a few hundred years, but not thousands. The furthest back I could go was the Renaissance. Among the English, as part of their celebrations with King Henry VIII. The original custom took place during large gatherings of people, and apples were associated with love or fertility. The first person to catch an apple would be the next one to marry. A tradition that is echoed in the modern throwing of the bouquet at weddings. The Romans were the first to perform the game during November in honor of Demeter. British author W. H. Davenport Adams, who attributed belief in the prognosticative power of apples, described the game as follows in his 1902 book, Curiosities of Superstition. The apples are thrown into a tub of water, and you endeavor to catch one in your mouth, as they bob round and round in provoking fashion. When you have caught one, you peel it carefully, and pass the long strip of peel thrice, sunwise, round your head, after which you throw it over your shoulder, and it falls to the ground in the shape of the initial letter of your true love's name.
During the time when the Druid priest held power in Great Britain.
Now in Great Britain, and over on that side of the world, many years ago, were the Celts, I guess you call them, the Celts, C-E-L-T-S. And they were a group of people who had priests called the Druids. The Druids were blood-drinking.
Even though today Druidism is a religion, back in the Celtic days it was not. No classical writer ever referred to the Druids as priests, nor is Druidism depicted as a religion. The Druids, while at times priests, were not even primarily that. But they were Celtic priests, and there were Celtic priests who were not Druids. Druids formed the intellectuals, or learned class, were deemed the highest caste. The caste not only consisted of those who had a religious function, but also comprised philosophers, judges, teachers, historians, healers, poets, musicians, physicians, astronomers, astrologers, prophets, counselors, and custodians of the customs and traditions of their tribes. They could also sometimes be kings or chieftains.